Brothers and sisters, yesterday we spoke about St. Peter, Julian, Aymard. We spoke about how Eucharistic adoration is the most excellent of prayers and activities or human acts that we can engage in outside of the Mass. And this is because in it we get to really exercise those virtues of faith, hope and love, piety, humility, to be able to come and kneel before something that looks like bread, but we know is the Lord, takes great humility on our part, and that's something we could take for granted. There are people who will refuse to kneel before God, thinking it's something crazy or silly. So these virtues are exercised in adoration, and they perfect the soul in ways that we cannot even imagine. And so Eucharistic adoration brings us to the heart of the spiritual life in practicing these virtues. Now, today and the next 1 or 2 days, we want to look at his advice, and Peter Julian's advice around the whole idea of maybe having certain aids or a method maybe in prayer, especially if we feel dry and we feel uninspired and we are going to adoration. Then rather than just sitting there and wasting time or letting our mind drift all over the place, it would be far more efficient or far more beneficial to us to go there with something. Now, methods, I'm always cautious around methods. Methods are very important. They can help us, but sometimes, we don't make the method the end. A method is a means to really just being in union with Christ in adoration and to be with him. We have to know when to leave the method as well. So methods are there to help us raise our hearts and minds to God. And if that's achieved in adoration, if you make that real act of faith and you're with Christ and you're just simply resting in that knowledge that he's present, then it's okay to leave the method. Just be there with Christ. And if your mind's not too distracted and you're just resting in love with him, then that's the goal of the method. So leave the method behind. But if you're distracted and blown all over the place, then, having a spiritual book there, or maybe it's a regime of scriptures that you want to go through. If you're going through a gospel in particular, from beginning to end, you might pick up where you left off last time in the gospel. You might pray the rosary, have some kind of guidance to help you so that your mind can stay focused on Christ. St. Peter Julian Aymard is famous for recommending a method of adoration according to what he calls the 4 ends of the Mass. In other words, the 4 major pillars of what the Mass is. He says that that's appropriate to Eucharistic adoration, since the Eucharist is obviously celebrated in the Mass, and the Mass is the Eucharist in terms of its widest celebration by which we receive the Lord himself. And so by studying the Mass, we can get an inspiration about how to make, say, a holy hour. So he will speak about 4 ends of the Mass, being adoration, thanksgiving, reparation or propitiation, or you're making reparation, and then the last one is supplication or Eucharistic prayer, the prayer of Christ in the Mass. So let's look today at the first one a bit, and it's about adoration. And he says that the act of Eucharistic adoration has for its very object the infinite excellence of Jesus Christ, worthy by itself of all honor and glory. So this is why you in adoration, or people spend many hours in adoration, it's not a waste of time, because the very person you're contemplating, your human actions are geared towards, is the most excellent, most worthy thing of all your time in the world. And this is the Lord himself. And so he says that we are to make, say doing a holy hour, the first 15 minutes to really enter that act of adoration. But it's not only your adoration, is that you're being united to Christ's adoration in the Eucharist. That Jesus is adoring through his sacred humanity, adoring the Father in love. And you're uniting yourself to the adoration of Christ as well, of the Father. So he says, unite also your praises, therefore, to those of the heavenly court. So when we go to make adoration, we can make little acts and try to be aware of heaven, of the saints, of their adoration of the Lamb, of Christ, of the Father, and in the Spirit. And we could invoke our favorite saints. We can, especially Our Lady and Saint Joseph, and we can ask them, help me prepare to make this holy hour. Help me to prepare to enter this adoration. Unite me to your adoration. Our Lady especially is the one who adores Christ in the most perfect of ways. So we can ask her to do that. And so we ask the heavenly court. We become aware of the heavenly court. And then he says, then contemplate the greatness of the love of Jesus, instituting, multiplying, perpetuating the divine Eucharist until the end of the world. Admire, adore his wisdom in leaving himself so readily available to us. His power, which has triumphed over every obstacle. We can adore this. We could admire this. Exalt his goodness, which has made you the very end of the greatest and holiest of sacraments. For Jesus Christ would have done for you alone what he has done for all. What love. So we just enter this adoration, this raising of our heart and minds, and just a praising God. And that will help us to separate from the busyness of the world and enter into his heart.